All right, welcome back. We are getting ready to repair, yes, I said repair, the 27-gallon fuel tank from the Cadillac Deville. So I thought about this long and hard, and ultimately the decision to do this was inspired by the price of a new fuel tank. So we're going to try to repair this one. So I gathered up a roll of shop towels, and I cut off two at a time, and I shoved it down through the fuel cinder hole there, two at a time, and moved them around. And I had this flexible thing with the three grabby things on the end of it, and I could pull the paper towels out and set those aside over there in the woods and let them dry out. And I got as much gasoline out of the tank as I could, and then after that I poured in about a quart of Super Clean, let that sit for a bit, and then I just filled it up with water. And I am going to let this run for, I don't know, a good long while, I think, until we get all the gasoline out of the tank. I'll let this run for a little while. I'll tip it up and drain all that water back out, I think, and then I'll probably fill it up again and let it drain out again. And then after that, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and cut. So that baffle is about right there. And what we'll do is we'll make a cut along there, over to about there, up this way, and up that way. And the neighbor Rick has fired up his Saturday morning lawn equipment. So good timing, Rick. Anyway, so we'll make us a hole about like that, and then we'll peel that off, and we'll get in there with a welder and see if we can't repair that baffle. That's my goal. Let's see how well we can do. All right, we're back. We got through running the water out of the tank, and this is where we are. So basically, with the water still in it, full of water, I cut this part of the tank out. And got a few things going on here. We'll talk about them. Here's the baffle. This is where the filler comes through the baffle. This end of the baffle seems to be affixed, but it still rattles. Down here, I think Rick's got all of his machines out today. Anyway, down here, I think you understand what I've been trying to figure out what was rattling. So let's see here. Anyway, there, I think you can see what's going on there. So in the process of cutting this section out, which I did a great job, almost. So I guess this is a return line, and these are vents. I don't know which is which. Some are vents and some are return. I don't know. But when I was cutting this, clearly I cut through that there and there, and I'm like, oh well, okay. So I cut this little section up to try to see what was going on and to try to attempt a repair, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. So I will either be able to repair, I'm not worried about this down, I can fix that, the baffle. My problem is this, can I fix this? So I'm going to put some brain power into that. If I can fix this, I'll move on. If I can't, I'll scrap it and buy another tank. I'll be back. All right, the story continues to develop. So, here's my little screw up here, and there's one here and one there. So, what are we going to do? I've decided to try to repair this with some brazing, and I went up to the big box and got this Hillman. It's a bronze sleeve. It's a bushing, bearing, whatever you want to call it. I'm not sure what its intended purpose is. The ID is a half. This is 7/16 OD. So I cut a piece off and cut it in half and made myself a patch. And I got a pair of pliers and crimped it down a little more since it's 1/2 inch inside. So to crimp down over the mistake, so that will sit over that gap like that and just sort of kind of wedge in place. Crunched it down a little smaller than this, so I wedged in place. So it should stay there while I braze it. So that's my theory. So let's hope. All right. So All right, up next, try to get my torch and my brazing rod in place and try to see how successful I can be at this. I've never brazed anything before. I did some practicing over on the workbench on a flat piece of metal, but we'll see what happens. All right, that's what it looks like. It's pretty gnarly. Turns out that bronze bushing that I use, you know, in addition to the brazing rod, they kind of worked together and kind of melted in there and closed up the gap. I'm not going to worry. It's probably open on the bottom part down here a little bit. I'm not going to worry too much about it. This is a return line, so if you get a little seepage here, you know, it's like, oh well, who cares? I just didn't want it to break inside the tank. So I think this is a good fix. So I'll go ahead and it's blackened here a little bit from the heat. So I'll go ahead and spruce that up with a little abrasive wheel real quick. All right, there we go. That's my very first brazing job. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, but oh well, I think it'll hold. So we got a slit about halfway on the top of this pipe here, and we put a patch on it with a bronze bushing. And I know the bronze bushings are kind of granular in nature. A lot of them are soaked with oil and stuff for various applications. But anyway, I'm not really worried about that. This is not a pressurized tube in any way. It's just a return line. It's just, you know, the fuel comes up here, goes along here. And I looked with the camera earlier, and it basically just dumps right there. So if a little bit trickles out here and here, you know what? It just doesn't matter, right? This little repair here offers rigidity, and that's good enough. You got to pick your battles. We're going to move on. I'm going to move forward with welding up this rattling baffle. So, all right, that's next. All right, I'm going to be doing several spot welds here in the tank to tighten up this baffle. Can't really film down in here, so I'm going to do the best we can. I'm going to start with an easy spot right up front where I can get at it. And I tested my welder on some sheet metal. Got it on the lowest setting, which is A. The speed is around 2.5. I'm not sure what that is. Something. Inches per something? I don't know. Something per inch? I don't know. Couldn't tell you. It's slow. So let's just do a quick one. I need a ground, dummy. You have to be grounded. It's important to be grounded in life. There we go, right there on the top of the baffle on that one cleaned up section. That'll be good to go. All right, it's okay-ish. All right, let me go put 20, 25 or 30 booger wheels around this baffle and tighten it up, and I'll be back before you know it. All right, we've made a lot of progress here. I've got spot welds all around this baffle. There's some rattle still. But there's no rattles there. I'm holding this pipe. What's going on here is this return pipe comes under here, comes along here, makes a slight turn, and is attached with a bracket right here. And there's two factory spot welds where that bracket is, and that right there is loose. That little bracket is loose. So up next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a cut. I'm going to cut a square right here, and I'm going to find a way to reattach that bracket so that it doesn't rattle. Wish me luck. If you hold this down, that's just the resonance of the tank now. You know, I've got spot welds all the way around that baffle and around this filler neck where it comes through the baffle. So there are places, a couple of places on the outside where I thought I might have shot through. I don't think I did, but because I was really careful. I got it on the lowest setting. So in places where I think I might have possibly shot through, I'll just touch it up on the outside and it'll be fine. So, all right, wish me luck. All right, I've done a little research with the camera up through here, and I think the bracket is readily affixed to the skin of the tank. It's basically just a bracket that's shaped like this, right? And the two flanges are spot welded here and here, and this line goes through it. That line is not, it's just rattling around inside that bracket. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut probably a rectangle of steel out right here to expose this line enough to where I can braze the line to the bracket. And then I will weld the little square back in place, and that should keep the line from rattling. So if you put a little bit of pressure on it like this, see, it doesn't rattle. But if not, unacceptable. We're going to fix that. All right, we've got a piece of metal here removed, and you can see the bracket and the two spot welds, and there's the fuel line, or the return line. I think that'll do it. I believe we have done a fair job of remedying that. You know, I might put a little spot weld right in there too, just for good measure. That couldn't hurt anything. Let's just do that too. Why not? All right, I'm going to go ahead and clean up this area, and then I think I'll put a spot weld there just because I can, and then we'll put our little patch back in there. All right, so our little patch is now too small because of the you know, the width of the cutting wheel, so I'm going to make a new one. I've got some spare sheet metal laying around, so that's what we're going to do. It's the same thickness. All right, I believe that will suffice. Let's put a couple spot welds in that, then remove our magnet and continue with our repair. Okay, so I had to cut new pieces of metal here, here, and here because obviously the gap between the old piece and the hole was too great to span with the welder without it turning into a travesty, really. These spots are done, and the really mundane, boring part that I've been dreading is now cleaning out the interior of the tank. I guess I'll just pour some super clean in there and get in there with a rag and just kind of get after it, you know. Probably run the vacuum cleaner first, the shop vac, and get as much dust and debris out of there as I can. It's all grinding dust and welding and all kinds of stuff. And then I'll use some rags and some super clean, and I'll get the interior as clean as I can. And then of course the last bit would be to reinstall this piece here. Now, if you center it, the gaps are going to be too far on a couple of different sides to weld. So I think what I'm probably going to do is just butt it up against this edge and this edge, so we can weld it, and that will leave a prominent gap on this side and this side. And I guess what I'll do is just cut a really thin piece of steel and just kind of lay it over the top of that, and then put a couple of spot welds here and there, and then tap it in there, and then tap on it to bend it to make it follow the contour, and do that all the way around. That's as good as I can make it, I guess. It doesn't really matter, because this is the top of the tank. Nobody's ever going to see it. So as long as it's sealed up, that's all we need. And after we do all that, we'll check everything for leaks, probably pressurize it with some air, plug up these holes here and this hole as best we can, and then pressurize it, and then use some soapy water and check for leaks and all the little places where the welding might have come through. I don't think it did, but we're going to check it really well and make sure it's not leaking. So all right, so up next I'm going to clean the inside of the tank out, and then we'll start welding this piece back in place. All right folks, I think I'm going to wrap this video up. I simply ran out of time for this weekend. But I do believe we made a lot of progress. I got this part cleaned up. I've got all the burrs off of it and everything. So when I get ready to weld this piece back in place, it's all set to go. So I think we're going to wrap this video up. Things that we have left to do: I've got to clean the tank out. I've got to weld that piece back in, and then I'm going to have to leak test the tank. I'll pressurize it and use some soapy water on the outside and test for leaks, and fix any leaks that occur, obviously. After the leak test, I think we'll go ahead and just do a basic wire wheel on the top side of the tank where most of the rust is, and then do an etching primer, and then maybe just a very basic galvanized looking grayish type of a paint. And then on the underside, where the part you'll see, I think what I'll do is probably just sand it a little bit, and I'll touch it up with some standard undercoating, and it'll look stock when I'm done. So that it should look fine once we get the tank reinstalled. So in the next video, tank cleaning, reinstallation of this panel, leak testing, and then reinstallation of the tank, and that will involve our new fuel sender unit as well. And also we'll need to replace all of the rubber fuel lines in the back, because as you recall, I clipped them off because it was just too much of a pain to remove them. But fuel line is cheap, so I'm willing to put up with that minor expense for a little bit of convenience. But in the next video, I'd like to add in a couple of small items that I've been thinking about doing for quite a while. One, I am going to reinstall a resonator on this car. A couple of years back, I had some basic exhaust work done on the vehicle, and I told the exhaust shop to just, just leave the resonator off. I think I'd like to hear that rumble out of the back of my Cadillac. Well, a couple of years later, and I thought better of it. Going down the highway, it's pretty loud. It has a lot of resonance inside the car. So we're going to quieten that down. We're going to go back with a resonator. We're going to make the exhaust system completely stock once again. Plus, since I'm on the hunt of annoying rattles and noises and vibrations, that extra exhaust noise makes that job a little bit harder. So we're going to go ahead and put the resonator back on this car, and one other minor little item on the emissions system we're going to reinstall on the vehicle, because I've had a change of heart about that as well, believe it or not. Hey, listen, I appreciate you guys stopping by the channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to be notified whenever I release a new video, don't forget to click that little bell down below. You guys have a good one, and remember to enjoy driving your classic Cadillac.